Since you are asked with this question a lot, it might seem a little primitive or something, but still, is cryptocurrency going to replace the traditional money?
When we look about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, there are different types of digital assets. For example, Bitcoin is the kind of digital gold. Then you have different types of cryptocurrencies where the price value is every day. And then you have stable coins that are pegged by the fiat currency like US dollar, for example. When it comes, for example, to Bitcoin, I believe Bitcoin is a bit like a digital version of gold. There's a limited number of it. You can subdivide it in as many little pieces that you want. In the same way, you can have a bar of gold and you can have a wedding ring. Same thing with, you can have a full Bitcoin and you can have up to 8 decimals of a Bitcoin. And similar to gold and Bitcoin, neither of them goes bad, and so on and so forth. So I think there's a lot of similarities between gold and Bitcoin. And one can argue between stable coins and normal money. The only difference is stable coins are run on the blockchain. Now the big debate is always between Bitcoin and traditional money. Will traditional money disappear? I don't think so. I think what we're going to see is the traditional financial system that we know today, and in parallel, you'll have Bitcoin, gold, in the same way they operate, and they all operate side by side. People, as part of their investments, may like to hold government bonds, some gold, Bitcoin, and some cash. I think that's how the way we like to look at it.
Money has always been viewed like something like a social contract. Like barter needed trust and so on. Like fiat needed governments. What replaces the trust, if we can say so, in case of cryptocurrency?
So for a long period of our history, even when you look at recent US dollar, for example, it was backed by gold. For a long period of time in history, we had the gold standard, but as of 1971, this is not the case anymore, and it's a purely fiat standard. So basically, you trust your central banks, they're going to do the right thing, and they're not going to devalue your currency. Now, of course, there's a trust element in place. The beauty of Bitcoin and actually the other digital assets is that basically you don't need to trust the government. You don't need to trust a central bank. All you need to trust is mathematical code. Literally, you have to believe in mathematics and code. If, for example, when it comes to Bitcoin, the code is very clear. There's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin ever. That's it. Every 10 minutes, there's a fixed number of Bitcoin that are created until the year 2140. That's it. When I make some transaction from me to you, it's very clear. It's on a blockchain. Everybody can see it, and you know that it's coming from me, and you get it. You don't need to trust anybody. You don't need to trust a bank. You don't need to trust the central banks. You don't need to trust intermediaries. The trust is purely in mathematics and code. And many would argue that actually that's a better trust mechanism than human beings and corporations with regulations and everything we put around.
Is it?
It's a big debate whether people will trust Bitcoin more or, for example, central banks. I would argue that has also changed with years. For example, if you look since 2008, the global financial crisis, that is what gave rise to Bitcoin. Bitcoin was created 6 weeks after the collapse of Lehman Brothers, the big investment bank during the 2008 financial crisis. So people really lost trust towards the banking system and looked for an alternative. In the same way, when people don't trust fiat money, they don't trust stock markets, they don't trust governments, they often buy gold. In the same way that people buy gold, and many people will actually, especially younger people, may be more comfortable with Bitcoin. Somebody like me, for example, I'm definitely more comfortable holding Bitcoin than I'm comfortable holding gold. It's easier, I can hold it, you can move money around the world, there's not the big fees of stockage, keeping it, and so on and so forth. Yes, gold, you can wear it as beautiful jewelry, but when it comes to actually crypto, you can actually have it and use it everywhere you want. So I think there's a lot of pros and cons, but there's also a generational issue as well. I think if you ask some of the younger audience that you have watching the show, I'm sure many of the younger people will be more comfortable with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies than there are with traditional stocks, gold, and other assets.
Can anything happen that will make people lose this trust in these technologies?
Unfortunately, some of the recent scandals that we had in the broader Bitcoin and crypto ecosystem have nothing to do with Bitcoin or digital assets. That actually have more to do with the companies operating in the space. For example, some of the recent bankruptcies we've had, hacks we've had, are done by bad actors. Some of the companies that went bankrupt are simply crypto companies that were actually of bad faith. Bitcoin did nothing wrong. When a big company like FTX went bankrupt, Bitcoin network operated as it normally does operate. So there's no problem on that side. it was really a lot of the human players around that were the problem. So in the same way that many people may not trust, government, central banks, policymakers, human beings, these same people may have more trust towards mathematical code and smart contracts in a way.
Oh, but humans are always the problem, like in other systems, in other finances as well.
If you look at throughout history, every nation, every countries that rose to prominence, they all fell. History always repeats itself. Every currency, what we see as the global reserve currency in a way has changed over the years. It used to be, for example, the Dutch florin. It was the French franc. It was the British pound. Now, for the last 100 years, it's been the US dollars. But if history repeats itself, we're at the end of the US dollar era. Now, what's going to replace it? Is it going to be the euro? Is it going to be gold? Is it going to be Bitcoin? Time will tell. But I would argue that the innovation that Bitcoin brought to the world 16 years ago is really groundbreaking innovation that allows us, in a digital economy that we have, in a world that's becoming more decentralized, to move value from one place to another without intermediaries. And really, Bitcoin allows us really to solve this problem of these intermediaries that have been the problem throughout history.